I didn't decide to go to Stanford. I had not much heard of Ivor Winters, who became so important to me. I asked my great teacher, probably in my opinion, by far the most important American literary critic of the 20th century, Francis Ferguson, author of The Idea of a Theater and his book on Dante. I mean, Francis Ferguson, the great good luck of being his student. I told him I had wound up going to Stanford, sort of by accident, and he said Winters was crabby but very impressive. And no, I was going to go to Berkeley, and there was some kind of bureaucratic screw-up where Berkeley thought it had a limited number of, this is how long ago it was, Woodrow Wilson Fellows. This is when we still thought Woodrow Wilson was the epitome of all good humane values. Turns out that we correctly consider him kind of a schmo, or schmuck, or some bad thing. And a dean at Berkeley mistakenly told a lot of people, you can come to Berkeley, but not with the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. And that was the only place I really thought I was going. And I sort of applied to Stanford by telephone. Some of my teachers at Rutgers phoned people there, and I got to Stanford, and subsequently, thanks to Winters, I got a Stegner Fellowship. And it was a great place for me to be. And I had my great friend, the amazing poet Jim McMichael, that I met there, and impressive people like Bob Hass, Ken Fields. Stanford turned out to be a very good place for me, and it had a kind of a literary, writerly presence, thanks to Stegner and Winters, that Berkeley would not have had. So it was another example, not exactly a Jersey break, though it was a break, and maybe it was a Jersey break. My teachers at Rutgers called up people they knew at Stanford and said, he didn't apply before the deadline, but look at his folder, or something like that. The nickname for Stanford is the Farm, and as I say in the book, when I got there, what's now Silicon Valley was then apricot orchards. People kept goats and they grew apricots. And it was the Stanford's farm, and there were still people alive who had gone to Mrs. Stanford's kindergarten, and I think the guy who had been the Stanford's handyman was still around, and Palo Alto was a sleepy little old-fashioned provincial western town. Phil Levine has a story, typical Phil Levine story, that he was walking across the Stanford campus, very crowded, and there was a guy carrying a huge crate of some kind he was delivering, and he picked Phil out of all of the people there to say, where's the whatever so-so building, because the social class was recognized, or the East Coastness of Phil Levine.